Welcome. I'm Chris, Head of Marketing at Koia, and we're joined by Harry today, who's going to be talking a bit more about sneaker and sneaker culture. Welcome, Harry.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a 21-year-old student studying up in the lovely Midlands at Warwick University, finishing my degree off this year. Been involved with the sneaker scene for probably about 4 or 5 years. Originally kind of desperately going for Supreme drops at Thursday at 11, and then kind of cutting my losses and moving more into kind of investing in the shoes in kind of secondary markets. So that's kind of a brief overview about myself.
That's pretty cool. Well, you got a bit of the collection on display. How did you get into it?
So originally, I think it was that you're a student, you're 16 years old, and you're desperate to try and make some money. That's what you want to do. And at the time, Supreme Thursday at 11 o'clock was the way to do it. So a friend of mine, we'd have our break at school from like 10:50 to maybe like 10 past 11. And one of the days, I think it was in 2017, 2016, he got the Supreme North Face Mountain Parker, which at the time was worth, pick a number, like 800, 900 pounds. Yeah. So the margin was like 600, which at the age of 16 is a lot of, there's a lot of money to come across now even, but at 16, it's a lot of money. So I kind of started more in the whole sort of apparel sort of scene. Jordans probably weren't as popular in the UK at this point. So that wasn't really the place to be. I got a few Air Forces here and there, but by and large, I was more into the apparel scene. And then probably after kind of Yeezys became a bit more commonplace, I started to sort of jump in a lot more. I was there contesting every drop. It wasn't just doing raffles. It was like, right, I got to be, online, on Foot Locker, trying to get items. So I think it was kind of a gradual journey up, but it kind of started at quite a young age. Took me a while, a few mishits here and there. I remember I got a Supreme hoodie thinking, oh man, it's got Supreme written on the arm. Yeah. It's perfect. Comes to resell, it's down immediately. And I was like, well, there we go, and I think, and that's a natural part of everything,
Yeah, of course, you got to learn a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
And how much did you start with? I mean, money-wise?
So originally for me, because, I didn't have any savings, I didn't do a job or anything, I was just kind of a full-time student. Yeah. It was quite literally just a matter of purchase it, with credit card, and then immediately sell, repeat. So for me, it was just about how can I sell as many items as I can as quickly as possible and get them out the door so that I can constantly have kind of cash coming in. And I think for all young people who are kind of maybe entering the field now is the same sort of thing, you don't have enough money really to afford to be able to hold. I remember I tried it one time just because I was a bit lazy getting stuff out the door, and you're left with 20 quid in your account, and you're looking at a Nando's, for example, and thinking, well, this is kind of a bankrupting moment here.
That's not good when you don't have enough for Nando's.
No, that is even with all my reward points. So and I think for when I started, I didn't really have a set amount of money, but I think as I got older, it was less of a matter of I was buying in the secondary market when I started. It was more, I buy an item and I was like, hang on a minute, this is going to go up. I've seen previous releases that have gone up in value a lot. I was talking a little bit off camera about it. So I kind of learned my lesson the hard way that actually on some releases at the early stage, you just want to be holding. But
yeah, definitely. And someone new coming into the game or space, how much would you say you need to get started with?
I'd honestly say any number you want, really. Like, here, there are items here that are about £50 on retail, up to about, 180, off the retail price. So, really there's a huge array of different price points, depending on what you're really after. I wouldn't say there's like a set number that you've got to start with. If you want big scale, clearly, you want more numbers. I think if you want to play secondary market, doing the more investment side, you probably want maybe a couple of thousand to be able to get a really good solid collection off. Yeah. But these are long-term holds. These aren't 2 months I get out. Okay. It's not like stocks where it's like I can sell it at a heartbeat and just kind of get my cash out. These are ultimately liquid assets. So it's going to take you a while to sell. Particularly if they're like larger or very small sizes. That market's pretty choppy and sales are quite sporadic, a lot of jumps. So yeah, that's what I'd say on that.
And then when it comes to flipping and holding long term, what's your opinion on kind of the two strategies?
I got my hands burnt so many times flipping immediately. I could tell a story about it actually. So it was February of 2019, and it's probably my best streak of two cops in a row. I got a pair of the Strangelove Nike Dunks, which are a kind of pink fluffy pair of.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I see them way too often now, it feels. And the other one was the Off-White Jordan, I think it was the 5, the kind of black, more industrial-looking ones. And I got those within the space of about 2 weeks of each other. And they're kind of two different stories. So the Strangelove Dunks, I sold immediately. Bought them for 90, price had hit about 320, 330. I thought, wow, this is threefold what I bought them for. This is a great deal. I need to get out. Meanwhile, the Off-White Jordans I sold for 750 off like a retail of 160. And that was the top of the market pretty much. The market's reacted a bit, courtesy of kind of Virgil sadly dying.
Of course.
But the Strangeloves in comparison rocketed. The Strangeloves went from 300 to 900 within the space of 5-6 months.
Yeah.
So I got my hands burnt pretty damn hard on it. And this is where kind of you need to have a really good knowledge set of some shoes. This year has been the year of Jordan 4s. If you've had Jordan 4s, you've been laughing. It's been a really great year for that. I think some dunks have done really well, not all, but some of the earlier release dunks have done really well. So I think that's when it becomes a lot more about, you got to understand, and I'm sure we'll go into it, some of the metrics are important. What's the stock number? Is this like what's the breakdown of the stock number? Are most of the shoes sitting in Europe? Are they in the US? Are they in Asia? I think all those kind of things play a big role about whether you flip or you sell. But I think, you flip or you hold.
Yeah, long term.
Yeah.
In terms of, I guess you touched a little bit, what's your criteria when you're looking at buying a certain sneaker?
So for me, I kind of, from a more numbers-based view, there's one really simple metric I use, and I call it the resale to retail ratio. Because the theory is basically this, if a shoe sells out within the first 10 minutes, it's highly unlikely you're going to find them sitting around at your lovely local Foot Locker. That shoe is always going to trade at a slight premium above. So basically, the closer you buy that shoe to its initial retail value, the less risk you take. So from a risk perspective, if you buy a shoe, let's say that's 20% over its retail price, you have a max loss in theory of 20%. And I'd say that's one of the guiding factors I do. But I mean, the classic things are still there. What's the colorway like? Can you actually wear this shoe? And I feel like that's something that people underestimate in importance a lot. What's the kind of burn rate of the shoe? So, most shoes that get sold through StockX, Grailed, Go.
Sneakers out, yeah.
Yeah, sneaker. Well, yeah, I mean, for the secondary market, they're all new. They're all brand new. So the more wearable the shoe is, you'd have seen these Panda Dunks, the black and white ones running around. They're priced as really well because people want to wear them. They want to wear them immediately. They're a really, really, really wearable shoe. So as a result, the price goes up quite aggressively. So I think wearability is really important of the shoe. The stock number, of course, is really important. But again, people don't really know that number. Sometimes people are guessing. They hear a leak. They hear a leak out of China.
Rumors.
Yeah, Twitter rumors. They hear a leak out in China or something like that, and they say, "Oh, I think it's 1 million pairs releasing." But even that can change. Just to show how much wearability can matter. I remember when Kanye said, "I'm going to release 1 million pairs of Yeezy Cloud Whites." Sorry, of Yeezy Cream Whites, and everyone said he's lying. There is no way Kanye can do 1 million pairs. Every other release had been 150, 200,000. He does it. He pulls the trigger. He releases 1 million pairs, floods the market. Price absolutely collapses because this is a re-release of the shoe. If you'd bought in at that low, you'd have now nearly tripled your money. Because again, it's a really wearable shoe. Everyone wants to wear that clean white Yeezy look. And this despite the fact there was over 1 million pairs. An average drop size is maybe 200,000, 150,000. So I think that whole thing of wearability is really important, and it's all relative. It's all relative. Of how wearable is it? What's the stock number? Because there's great shoes that resell for a lot off the bat, but they never go up in value. They just kind of plateau. And I've got 1 or 2 of those pairs here. Yeah. Well, you win some and lose some. So I'd say that kind of, to bring it back again, resale to retail is really important. The color blocking is really important, which kind of goes in with the wearability. The stock number is unbelievably important. How many are knocking around, and then probably lastly, I just kind of say, where is that stock? There's a number of guys who've been able to arbitrage by shipping stuff over to Asia or shipping stuff from Europe exclusives back to America. So, on a high-end level, a more high-end level, that stuff's really important as well.
No, definitely. Those are some really good points, though. I think wearability, a lot of people overlook, like you said, and it's whether people are actually going to wear them or they're just going to leave them in the box and hopefully flip them at a later point.
Yeah.
So our next point is around value. Why does a sneaker cost X amount or go up in value?
Yeah, so I think it's for a lot of the points I kind of went over. You know, the wearability is really, really important. You know, the criteria at the moment in most of the market is the shoe has to be brand new. You know, never worn, etc.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, clearly the more wearable the shoe, the higher it will go up. The other thing as well is that, you know, I mentioned the stock number of the shoe. You know, physically how many pairs of the Brazil Dunks, for example, get released, but not a lot of people, or at least they didn't, focused on what was the distribution of that stock. You know, was most of that stock in the sizes 7 to 10? Was it in the size, you know, 4 to 8? You know, that kind of thing, because that really matters as well. Because then suddenly you've got, you know, the price difference. You know, it's effectively kind of like a U-shaped graph. You know, which is the really small sizes have really high prices because there's barely any of them, and the very large sizes have really high prices because again, there's barely any of them. Versus your size like 7 to a 10.5 have a lot. So I'd say definitely kind of like that size distribution is really, really important. And particularly shoes that don't have like a kids edition or a grade school edition. Yeah. Really, you'll start to see a lot of price movement within the smaller pairs because that's traditionally kind of what women, you know, wear with some, you know, smaller feet, obviously. Yeah. So I kind of say all those sort of factors really, really play a role, but also like the cultural significance as well. Cultural significance is a huge, huge, huge role. Who's wearing what? Yeah, I know when Travis Scott wears 1 or 2 Dunks, you know, from 2005 that you would have found in, I don't know, a Macy's in the US on discount, suddenly they're worth, you know, $800, $900.
Market blows up.
Yeah, market blows up. So I think cultural significance is huge as well. And in terms of why they go down, you know, because obviously you know,
as much as it goes up,
as much as it goes up, is that, you know, restocks can sometimes rock your prices. You know, if there is a release of that shoe in the extent of 1 million pairs, then if you're one of those people who was initially holding, you're going to kind of feel the burn, as it were, particularly if you're buying at secondary prices. And also as well, like hype can die out. It's a little bit rarer, but hype can definitely die out. You know, Air Maxes used to be the thing versus now, maybe not as much as they used to be. So again, you know, those kind of trends fading in and out are definitely a huge part of kind of what goes up and down.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of trends that come in and come out depending on celebs or music artists that wear a certain sneaker, and then it comes back, you know, floods the market again.
100%.
So our next point would be, how do you keep on top of it? You know, where do you get your news? What sort of sites or any social media accounts you also kind of look to keep on top of the trends?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the most common thing you'll see is the kind of Discord group being advertised in sneakers. And originally, you know, I wasn't a part of that. You know, I only joined a cook group in the last 2.5, 3 years or so. Partly because I'm more into the investing side, and most of these kind of Discord groups are more for if you want to get it on release day at such and such a website. But I'd say there's a ton of Instagram pages. You know, back when Supreme was really the thing to sell, Supreme Leak News was huge. You know, my personal Discord group I use is Hustle the Hype. I'm not getting endorsed to say it, by the way. It's just a really good group, and it's UK based as well. A lot of these are US based, which is fine, but you know, you might not get the best info for UK releases. Yeah. A lot, you know, retail or resell, that Instagram page. There's a lot of Instagram pages that kind of look at whether this is kind of a hold or sell option, which for me is much more useful, obviously. But yeah, you know, it's one of my friends who used to be huge into kind of sneaker reselling, kind of stepped out for a bit. And he almost felt that he was almost entering a new world. It had been like 3-4 months he was out, and he was like, well, why? You know, why all of a sudden the people, you know, talking about New Balances and things like that again, because a New Balance release comes up. So yeah, I'd say that you need to have a really wide breadth of sources. And also as well, you probably need to have your kind of, you know, ear to the kind of whole, you know, celebrity culture to an extent, because if you do want to kind of ride that wave, that's a really, really easy way to do so. You know, kind of see what people wearing, what the kind of fashion looks changing at. Probably, you know, look at TMZ and look at what Kanye's wearing, because that's always a pretty good predictor, to be fair.
So bots have been kind of a recent explosive, and some would say damaging to the culture in the last few recent years. How do you get around that? How do you get access to kind of exclusive drops where you want to be taken part of and not be cancelled out by, you know, bots?
So again, I think if you're playing the primary market, you're right. It's a really, really tough environment out there, particularly after COVID. A lot of releases moved online. You know, whole raffle systems, etc., kind of got put to one side, and a lot, you know, so it was less about, you know, you queue up outside of, I don't know, a size in Carnaby Street or something. It was more about, you know, we release it at a random time on a splash page and things like that. I think it's really hard to play that market right now. It is, because some of these bots are £8,000, £9,000, but I was talking to Benny about it. If you've got a friend who can code and develop, I don't think these things are apparently that complex. I don't want to say I am by no means skilled enough to be able to do that kind of stuff. So I think it's tough on the initial releases. It's tough. Some things are still great. I think Adidas is remarkably charitable, shall we say, in their kind of releases. I always kind of seem to hit pretty well on there. But I'd say the primary market's pretty tough right now, just to kind of get releases off the bat. It is difficult, but part of it is just literally going through all the websites, making sure you get all the raffle entries. And that's where things like the Discord groups play a role, because there might be a random release I remember I won one in Poland that was shipping over to the UK, and that was a great cop for me, and I guarantee a lot of people didn't know about it. So, I'd say that, get your information right and you can still have a chance to win. But the idea that you as like kind of a manual user sitting there with your credit card in front of you and a keyboard are gonna, absolutely mash it is probably a bit of a thing of the past at this point, unfortunately.
That's very true. I guess a lot of things are moving now to digital. We've also kind of seen the NFT space explode and Nike coming into it as well. What's your thoughts on that?
Look, if you kind of take the argument that StockX founder Josh Luber took, which is that we're going to get to a stock market of things, of items. I think one of the best ways you can get around that is to get rid of some of these frictional costs, the shipping costs, me having to hold it at my home, if you've got enough pairs, taking out contents insurance and things like that.
Oh, your whole bedroom.
If there's a leakage in that house, I'm done for. So I think that like that is one of the major sort of transformations we'll see in the digital space. Clearly with Koia, with what they're doing, I think that's going to be a huge transformation. But we've got to kind of see where the balance of power is. StockX tried to do it, and then Nike came and clamped down on them pretty hard on it for selling NFTs of the shoe. So I think it'll be an interesting space, because I think it's a real big question about whether people are content with these being investment products versus being cultural items. And I think really the brands have the power to dictate that whole dynamic, but we really got to see what's gonna happen with it. If you look at what Nike did with StockX, as I mentioned, then that might suggest they're more concerned with the culture. But we'll have to see kind of longer term what the whole digital space will do to kind of the sneaker market, sneaker culture as a whole.
Yeah, I guess it's moving quite quickly, and it's anyone's space to kind of pioneer and dictate what kind of happens in the future. But I think it's 100%. Quite exciting at the moment.
No, 100%.
So at Koia, we're all about fractional ownership, and that gives you access to more higher priced items or more expensive items. Have you seen any higher priced items that you keep an eye on or would like to fractionally own?
I would love to own the Kanye Bapesters. It's got the college dropout bear on the back of them. A lot of people will say I want the off-white, Nike. And yes, great. The 10 was a great release. But when I look at that, I kind of view it as like kind of an iconic piece of kind of Kanye's journey through. When he got the Louis Vuitton deal, he then did the Bapes. He then did the Nikes with the Air Yeezys and all that stuff. Then kind of moved over to Adidas from there. I think to own like part of that journey is really cool. And again, with these kind of really high price items, you are buying art. Ultimately, you are buying art because there's barely any of them on the market. And a lot of times in that case, the Bapester, it's a culturally significant item. So that pair would be a must have for me.
Good bragging right as well.
Oh, definitely. I'd have that all over my social media, just
all in the Discord.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty cool. Any last points that you want to talk about?
I guess I just say, it's a young audience realistically who will be kind of listening in. Is that I think the reason I really like sneakers is that I think a lot of people are getting involved in stock trading, things like that. And I don't really think they understand what they're buying. I'm not saying that I'm, a fully qualified investor by any stretch of imagination, but they're buying a lot of stuff they don't really understand. Yeah. That's, it's complex. They're complex things, understanding a company and all that kind of stuff. It's not an easy thing, that's why there's a whole industry around it. Yeah. Versus like kind of when I got into sneakers, it's conceptually not that difficult to understand, And I think for me, kind of being able to look at it and value it in a very simple way is something that's very attractive. And I think it's something that's very, uncomplicated. I'm not sitting there at night trying to think, what's going to happen in the investor presentation, for Q3. It's just, I know what it is and I know how it is. And I'd say that for young people right now, there is nothing wrong with kind of going for more simple things, such as, sneakers, to make a part up of your, investment portfolio, or kind of where you're putting your money in. Because again, there's a high chance that people out there probably own some of these items.
Yeah.
And they are great investment pieces, I think, that are really easy to understand. So yeah, that's kind of my concluding thoughts, my supporting rallying cry for the sneaker industry.
And I guess there's a lot of passion behind that as well. People can actually, associate with a sneaker depending on whether it's a special collab, a certain brand. I think that passion side really comes out within the sneaker market compared to maybe other forms of investing.
No, I completely agree with you. It's a culturally significant thing. There was a great exhibition in the London Design Museum by StockX going through the history of sneakers, and you understand this isn't just like a fad thing. This isn't just something that's kind of conjured out of nowhere. Yep. It's something that's had a real deep-rooted tradition through decades at this point. Why is Michael Jordan still a significant figure, given that almost probably 80% of people never saw him play when he was playing basketball? So I mean, that kind of just shows you how much the culture can just transcend it just being
across generations.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Cool.